It might come as a surprise to many people in India, but Pakistani intellectuals, especially who were liberal or progressive, have not only followed but even greatly admired their counterparts in India. One of the intellectuals that was once incredibly popular in Pakistan was Mr. Shashi Tharoor. The reason for his popularity was his book Inglorious Empire and the way he went on British media and exposed the crimes of British colonialism against all the people of India. That included us in Pakistan, and we felt proud that a South Asian had told the true story of what British colonialism did. But unfortunately, all of that now is ancient history because the positions Mr. Shashi Tharoor has taken with respect to the war between India and Pakistan, I think have shocked many people in Pakistan, and I think it's time for us to respond to his various claims. I think his positions were even more surprising given that he is not a member of the BJP. He is one of the leading figures of the Congress party. And for that reason, for him to have accepted without challenging or questioning the arguments and assumptions of the BJP is quite surprising. Let's begin by looking at his overall justification for the war.
All India wanted to do was to make it very clear that people from Pakistan can't just come across the border, kill innocent civilians who are just enjoying a tourist holiday and walk back across without having to pay a price for it.
If that indeed is the sole or main objective of what India wanted to accomplish, then I'm afraid I have to say that India has been spectacularly and singularly unsuccessful in achieving that objective, because the people who carried out those horrific terrorist attacks are still very much alive, have not been apprehended, have not been caught, have not been punished in any way, shape, or form. In fact, I would add that the terrorists wanted to spark Hindu-Muslim hatred and conflict not only in India but across South Asia. They wanted to spark a war between India and Pakistan, and that is exactly what they accomplished. To use an English cliche, they are laughing all the way to the bank, and it is incredibly sad, Mr. Tharoor, that you cannot recognize that that was their singular objective and that sadly our belligerents helped them achieve that very objective.
So all India did was react in self-defense to a terrorist outrage.
That phrase is absolutely correct, but not in the way that Mr. Tharoor means it. When he says all India did was react, I agree with him. That indeed is what India did. It reacted and it didn't think through about the consequences of its reaction, specifically of the consequences of going across the border into another sovereign country, attacking its territory, a country that has the fifth largest army in the world and has nuclear weapons. I would say that this was a knee-jerk reaction, an emotional reaction, not something that was thought through at all.
And India did so in an extremely careful and calibrated manner, and making sure they struck only known terrorist bases and headquarters, did so only at night when there were likely to be no civilians wandering around the streets, and did so while very carefully avoiding striking any government or military installations in Pakistan, very clearly signaling that this was not the first salvo in a protracted war, but rather a one-off reprisal for a terrorist attack.
I guess I should sincerely apologize for the misunderstanding, because although I've been teaching political science for 2.5 decades, I somehow missed the part where attacking another sovereign country in the dead of the night, in a calibrated manner, precisely, and so on, did not signal war. What would happen if we proposed this to the United Nations Charter, that if another country attacks the sovereign territory of another country, but it does so in the dead of the night, precisely and in a calibrated manner, that will not constitute the opening salvos of all-out war? Do you imagine that one would be able to achieve the task of world peace faster by allowing countries to attack each other's territory as long as they did so precisely and in a calibrated manner and in the dead of the night? You be the judge.
Sadly, Pakistan chose to overreact. There were severe artillery barrages across the line of control, killing 19 Indian civilians and hospitalizing 59 people with grave injuries. India only retaliated also in kind with artillery shells. But then when Pakistan decided to target Indian military installations by sending drones and missiles across, they were stopped and intercepted by Indian air defense, and India in retaliation attacked Pakistani air defense.
What you are describing, Mr. Tharoor, is exactly how every country in the world would react if its territory and national sovereignty is violated. In fact, it shocks me that a man of your learning would be surprised and would say that Pakistan, quote unquote, overreacted. What were you expecting? That Pakistan would say, oh, this is very precise, it's very calibrated, and it's in the dead of the night. Hence, we won't scramble our jets or try to defend our territory? That's absurd.
Now, again, it's very, very clear that India is not escalating, it is merely reacting.
Are the terms reacting and escalating mutually exclusive? India is reacting by escalating, and it has escalated the situation by violating the national and territorial sovereignty of Pakistan. These are obvious things that one doesn't really or shouldn't really have to explain to a man of your learning.
Okay.
If Pakistan chooses to stop its unnecessary provocations, India will not act. I'm quite sure about that. There is no proactive military engagement coming from the Indian side beyond the attacks in reprisal to the terrorism. Nothing at all.
So your expectation and your proposal, if I've understood you correctly, is that Pakistan should not defend its territory, its airspace, and that any attempt by Pakistan to defend itself is what? An overreaction?
These are extremely well-known terror bases, the headquarters of the Jaish-e-Mohammed in Bahawalpur and the headquarters of the Lashkar-e-Taiba in Muridke. These are not innocent places. If there were sadly any civilians staying there, there were families of terrorist leaders or those training to be terrorists. I'm really sorry to say this because we have absolutely no interest in behaving like terrorists and killing civilians. There is no question in my mind that India would have been very happy to merely dismantle the terrorist infrastructure rather than even take a single human life. But the fact is that these are places known and listed not just by Indian authorities, but by the international intelligence community. The agencies concerned are proscribed on the sanctions list of the United Nations Sanctions Committee. They are in no way innocent places, schools or mosques or homes. These are, unfortunately, places where terrorists are trained, financed, equipped, and dispatched to kill innocent civilians in India. That's what India was reacting to.
Mr. Tharoor, even if I were to accept your justification of the murder of family members of terrorists, I would still ask you this central question: why did India expel all the Pakistanis, those who were part of the government and those who were just working there as private citizens, from India? Why did India close 8,000 Twitter accounts of Pakistanis? Why did India ban songs as well as any kind of social media that was being displayed in India? The government did these things. And most importantly, what does the closing of the water of the river Chenab have to do with these terrorists? Why is India flagrantly violating the Indus Water Treaty? These are all the actions that were undertaken in the name of security of India, fighting terrorism, etc. But in fact, if you examine these particular actions, they have nothing to do with the security of India and everything to do with a broader conflict with Pakistan.
They're also asking me every time I put this question to them,
clear.
what's the evidence? What's the evidence, sir?
Well, as far as evidence is concerned, don't forget that Pakistan is a master of denial. They denied having anything to do with the Mumbai attacks that killed 170 people on 26/11/2008 until one of the terrorists was caught alive and the Pakistanis had to admit that he and everything he said came from them. They deny even knowing where Osama bin Laden was until he was found in a military encampment not far from a Pakistani army base inside Pakistan. This is the Pakistani route. It's constantly show us the evidence. Well, I mean, the fact is, there is enough circumstantial evidence and there are intelligence intercepts on the basis of which India is acting. And India has absolutely no other reason to do this.
If you listen to this statement carefully, you will realize that Mr. Tharoor basically offers no evidence of the direct complicity of the Pakistani state with the Pahalgam attack. His argument is, well, they did it 20 years ago, so they must be responsible for today. This is not an argument. Just because somebody did something in the past doesn't mean that every time it happens, it must be that particular person that committed it. This is at best only circumstantial evidence, which Mr. Tharoor himself admits. He says there's enough circumstantial evidence. Well, my friend, how can you go to war on the basis of just this level of circumstantial evidence? How can you go to war on the basis of saying, well, it happened in the past, so it has to be them? You're completely dismissing the possibility that this can be done by people independent of the Pakistan army. You're dismissing the possibility that it can be done by rogue elements. You're dismissing the possibility that there could be any third actor that could be involved in this particular conflict, or any local actor that could be involved in this particular conflict. You have just dismissed it out of hand by saying, what other motive could India have? What an innocent sounding question. To say that India at best has circumstantial evidence, but that the world should accept India's attack on Pakistan because, and I quote, India has no other reason for doing this, I mean, is an astounding leap of logic. India can have lots of other reasons for doing this. What reasons do you think India has for closing the waters of the Chenab? BJP can have lots of reasons to blame Pakistan for being unable to solve the problems of the people of Kashmir.
India is a status quo power. It wants nothing that Pakistan has. It is focused on growing its economy, improving its high technology, providing a future for its young people. It is entirely happy to be left alone by Pakistan, and it'll leave Pakistan alone. Pakistan is a revisionist power. It claims territory India holds. It is a bigoted power that wishes to take over parts of India on the grounds that the people living there happen to share the same religion as the Pakistanis.
It is fascinating to me how incredibly well-read and incredibly intelligent people go on to adopt the most simplistic narratives about their own countries as well as about other countries when those countries are at war. Mr. Tharoor says India is a status quo power and Pakistan is a revisionist or an aggressive power. But let's try and understand that India right now is not under the hegemony of leadership of the Congress party or Mr. Tharoor. It is under the hegemony of the BJP, about which Mr. Tharoor has written extensively. And here is what he has stated. This is his writing, his opinion, not mine. He has been equating the BJP with fascism not once, but many times. He says, and I quote, the Hindutva movement is the mirror image of the Muslim communalism of 1947, and its triumph would mark the end of the Indian idea. So who is right now in the hegemonic and dominant position in India? It is the Hindutva movement. It is BJP, about whom you are saying that they are the mirror image of Pakistan. And if that is true, and if Pakistan is a revisionist power, then why is India not a revisionist power, given that it is also under the influence of a movement that you claim is the mirror image of Pakistan? Doesn't make sense. We go on. Mr. Tharoor writes, how dare a bunch of hundas, it's not my word, this is his word, hundas, shrink the soaring majesty of the Vedas and the Upanishads to the petty bigotry of their brand of identity politics. So if you accept and admit that India has been run by a bunch of hundas who have reduced the grandeur, the majesty of the Vedas to just identity politics to get votes, then how and in what frame of work of reference are you saying India is a status quo power? Nothing is wrong with India. You heard it, ladies and gentlemen. I didn't say it. Mr. Tharoor said that the BJP is essentially just a group of hundas that have taken the majesty of the Vedas of Hinduism and reduced it to identity politics. Not my words, his words. He goes on, he says, the quest for dominance of Hindi, Hindutva, Hindustan is indeed the most dangerous threat to the foundations of our plural consciousness. What a remarkable, beautiful statement. I agree with it. I entirely agree with it. But the question is, who is dominant in India since 2014? Who is dominant for the last decade in Indian politics? It's not you. It's not Congress. It's not pluralism. It's Hindutva politics. Mr. Tharoor writes in the essay, beware the slippery road to fascism, and he points out the rising trend of fascism in Indian society. But when it comes to Pakistan, all of that is forgotten. My fascism is not fascism at all. Your fascism is fascism. You are a fascist, but we are angels. We've done nothing wrong. We are democratic. We are plural. You forget all your internal divisions. You forget all your opposition to Hindutva politics. You forget all your opposition to communalism, and you adopt their rhetoric. He goes on to say, Hindutva politics is an assault on the life-affirming religion of Hinduism. What a beautiful phrase. I want to sit with him, have a cup of coffee, and ask him the details about that, because I don't understand Hinduism that well. And I would love to learn about how Hindutva politics has destroyed the life-affirming religion of Hinduism, its plural identity. But why do you forget that when suddenly there's a war going on in between India and Pakistan? That is what Hindutva politics has done to Hinduism as a whole. He writes that the danger is of reducing non-Hindus to second-class citizens. He calls it the internal partition in the Indian soul. Beautiful phrase. The partition of the Indian soul. That Hindutva politics, the BJP is dividing Muslims and Hindus. You think it's just dividing them inside of India? I think it's dividing them across South Asia. And that's why it has an agenda with respect to Pakistan. I'm not saying Pakistan doesn't have similar agendas with respect to India. I have written about it. We have written about it. I've made videos about it even during the war with India. But how can you ignore that the same exists in the context of India as well? Mr. Tharoor writes that BJP is a toxin of bigotry. It's a poison. Imagine that. It's a poison. That he says the BJP's version of Hindutva injects bigotry, the poison of bigotry into Indian society. But suddenly, he forgets all about that when it comes to Pakistan, and he adopts the rhetoric of Hindutva politics. He adopts all the assumptions, all the arguments of the government in power. Please, Mr. Tharoor, play the role of the opposition. Question your government. Find out if the intelligence that they claim to have is actually correct or incorrect. I beseech you to understand that there are forces both in India as well as in Pakistan that are hell-bent on warmongering between our countries. They are hell-bent on communalizing politics in India as well as in Pakistan, different forces of course, and they are hell-bent on communalizing politics across South Asia. Hence, in conclusion, Mr. Tharoor, I ask you to question the assumptions of your arguments, which you seem to have accepted lock, stock and barrel from the armory of the BJP, the Hindutva politics that you yourself oppose. Don't give in to bigotry. Don't give in to communalist politics. Don't give in to the division of South Asia on the basis of the communal question. We are and have been one civilization for centuries. And we must heal the wounds of the past, and we must demand and ask for peace, and we must question and challenge all those people who want to push us into war with each other. Please do not give me this absurd and ridiculous argument that my fascism is better than your fascism, or my fascism is only fascism when it is against me, but when it is against you, it is not fascism, but it is the status quo. This is an absurd argument. the conflict of two fascist powers is not something we want to be involved with. We don't want to side with either fascist power. What we want to do is to be on the side of peace, to be on the side of secularism, to be on the side which is going to be the only view that will survive the test of history, and that view is the oneness and unity of all of humanity. Thank you so much.